Hi, Boons, it's Zacharu, and welcome to episode number 3 of the Stay True and Stay You podcast. Today, we are going to be discussing leather and ABDL and how these two things cross with each other. With me, I have Jay Baby, and he is going to be helping me learn all about how leather and ABDL mix mash together. So, how you doing, Jay Baby?
Hey, I'm super happy to be here. It's very exciting.
Well,
Hi
so glad
everyone.
to have you, and thanks for coming on the podcast. I greatly appreciate it. Do you have any of the social medias that the other Babs and Bakes can follow you on?
Sure, absolutely. Well, if you're on FetLife, I'm pretty easy to find. I'm J Baby. It's just JBABY, and I'm also even pretty easy to find on the big book of faces. I don't really get on Twitter very often. Or sorry, X anymore. But those are probably the easiest ways to find me. Also you can find me on Instagram as Noble Knave.
Oh, very cool, very cool. So you're not on the X Games mug, on the Twitcher machine?
Gosh, I mean, every time I'm like, oh, let me try this out. Well, okay, I will say there's a few people that I will watch and follow. So like, I'll go and see any new art that they've posted or things like that. But I don't really like post a lot on the X just because it's like it's a big diaper pail of the internet.
It is. It's a necessary evil of social media,
Yeah.
unfortunately. Okay.
Well, I mean, that's the thing is social media is just a tool depending on how you use it.
Exactly. It can be used for good or for ill. Okay, so I have a good handful of questions for you, and we're going to jump in together and learn. And J Baby is going to be our educator about leather and ABDL. So, first question I have is, what exactly is leather, and how did you discover it?
Oh gosh, that's a big old question. And I'll preface by saying like, anything I say is, my own opinion, my own definitions, my own experience. But
Of course.
trying to think of the best way to summarize is leather was a queer subculture that began around the tail end of the 1940s. And, it grew and grew from people that, mostly a lot of gays that found that, the leather this very hard-edged masculine ideal felt very sexy, and it became not just something that was sexually arousing, but also became a community, and it's since grown and grown, to this like large international intersectional um, counterculture for a lot of people that um, has helped with a lot of like fundraising and activism. And there's so like you could do so many thesis statements about like what leather is, but I guess to me it's a sense of belonging and community, and I guess I discovered it when I was just after I'd turned 21, or around there, when I'm going to date myself. I was on MySpace, and I discovered a leather man who lived in my state, and I was just like, "What even is like? I don't know what this is, but I know that it's kind of hot." So, talking with them, and the thing is, I knew a little bit about a lot of kink stuff already because I'd been a part of the adult the ABDL world for a while since I was a teenager, which you know, scandal upon scandal. The internet existed, but so I knew that that was a large part of me, and so it was like, oh, this is also a part of me, and I was luckily around people who were like, well, it's totally okay for you to be both. There were, definitely some more quote unquote traditional people who are like, well, you can either be a leather boy or a baby boy, but you can't be both. But me, I'm always like, you know, one of the best candy is Reese's. You got to get the chocolate and the peanut butter. Like, why wouldn't
Exactly.
I mix two things? Yeah, why wouldn't I? And it's really nice that, especially over the many years I've been in the scene, that there's been a lot more acceptance, I found. So I hope that that was a very, very long-winded answer to your
No, I
question.
loved it, and I'm honestly I am here for all the long-winded answers you have. So you mentioned a minute ago that there were people who were like it's one or the other, and with you
Yeah,
feel it's more of a two-sided coin. It's a part of you, just like being a little is a part of you. So with those two things
absolutely.
combined, how has that changed your life, and how do they mix?
Oh gosh. It's funny because I feel like so much of me, it's like it's. I think a lot of people feel like, your different sides. It's like flipping a light switch. Like when you're at a diaper party or CapCon or somewhere like that. You're in your baby mode, or when you're out at the bar, you're in leather boy mode, or when you're this, you're that. And to me, it's like, I'm always me. It's, maybe, when I'm at work, I have to be more assertive, but I'm still like the service oriented person that I am. It's more like a big soundboard with all the many tuners and things. But uh, I guess I view it as whether I'm, my leather boy self, my baby boy self, all of me, is what makes me who I am. So like when I'm out, with my leather folk, I'm still the childish, eager to please, silly, cuddly boy that I am. And when I'm out with a lot of my, AB littles and ABDL friends, I'm still very service oriented. And want to be able to help out. And you know, I guess I like to say like my full persona is a good little helper. And it's not something that like leaves where I am ever I am. It's just a part of it's the biggest and best part of me. And I guess learning to embrace these parts of myself has really helped me in my life, only because like I feel like with my leather journey, I learned to keep my standards for myself high.
Hmm.
Um, like always be working on myself to be better, and helping the community to be better. It gave me a lot more purpose to be, you know, active in a lot of ways in my life. And I guess not letting myself get away with the bare minimum. And I guess just embracing all the parts that make me who I am to be my most authentic self. I found that like what I thought would be hindering was actually helpful, and more people are curious and want to learn than I previously thought. Again, another big rambly answer.
No, no, we're all about the good answers, and I appreciate it. So you said Leatherman. So walk us through how does one become a Leatherman or a Leather woman, or how does that work? Is uh, like what? So pretend I am completely leather kink ignorant, which in this case I am. Um, walk me
Oh,
through this. Walk the audience through this on like how does one, uh, I guess, experience this kink? How do they get into it? Where? I guess who, what, when, why, and leather.
oh gosh, that's a big old question. It's and here's the thing: is like I feel like everybody's journey is different,
Okay.
depending on who they are, where they are, when they are. So like like people who came to it in the scene back in the '70s versus when I did versus someone who will come to it like tomorrow are all going to have a very different journey, because things are different. So like back in like the '70s or '80s, where it was like you heard about this one particular bar downtown, and you knew how to get there, and what the rules were once you got there. It's a little bit different when you can kind of look things up on the internet and find people on social media, etc. So I can only say, like, for myself, when I messaged people that were in my city, I was like, hey, I'm interested and I'm curious. what is this like? And I went to a bar with someone. Well, actually, first we just went to Denny's, which I'm a big fan of. Like the first time you meet someone in a public place. Like make someone buy you pancakes. That's my rule for life.
I like that. When you're meeting someone, make them buy you Denny's or IHOP if you don't have
Absolutely,
Denny's.
yes. You know, as insecure as you may feel, you are at least worth pancakes. So, um, getting a chance to just talk with people and be like, like so, and answer questions like, what is it about this that you're drawn to? What are you seeking? And kind of like vetting each other, of getting a feel for each other. And for me, a lot of my first steps were doing a lot of homework. But that's like where I was like, I wanted to learn all the history of this and like learn all the things. So a lot of it was like reading Emily Post's Miss Manners, because the first thing I was told is like the most important thing a leather boy can learn is how to mind his manners. And and then it was also a lot of other things of like, these are different type of play, this is what safe words are, this is what the hanky code is, which me, like that became a huge geek thing for me to be obsessed with. Is like I'm a total hanky code nerd about that. But
So what is
um
hanky code, or is that top secret?
oh so back in the day, which actually started back in the gold rush era, but it's most popular for what it was in the 70s and 80s, where you would wear a different colored handkerchief in your back pocket, and depending on which pocket it was in and what color it was, noted what you were looking for and what you were into. So if you had a light blue handkerchief in your left back pocket, it meant that you were looking to receive some oral sex. Or if you had a yellow handkerchief in your right back pocket, it meant that you were looking to get peed on, or something like that. And there's many different colors, especially nowadays. It's become sort of a dynamic language that new stuff is always coming in. And really, it's about basically being an icebreaker. Like you see someone wearing something, you're like, oh, I don't know that color, or is that this? And they're like, oh yeah, it's a hunter green hanky, so I'm a boy looking for a daddy. And then you can discuss, and maybe you're having a conversation. Maybe that goes into having some play together. Actually, their Age Play has a baby blanket is a handkerchief that you can use for Age Play. And teddy bear is, if you find a small enough teddy bear to fit in your back pocket, that is for cuddling. Although I actually have someone, when I won my first title, got me a Cookie Monster handkerchief that I will flag occasionally, because I'm interested in receiving cookies.
Okay, so you brought something
Um,
out of the core memories of middle school, and then I happen to see what you're wearing on your wrist. So I'm
Jelly bracelets.
yeah, I'm going to date myself this time. So in the heyday of from 2003 to 2005, I was in middle school, and
Our high school year. Yep.
yeah, and all the rage were the jelly bracelets, which they were lime
Yes.
green, blue, black, pink, and you would cross them, and like it was currency in middle school, and so you would trade these with people, and like we were dumb middle school kids, we didn't know what these meant until later. It was like, oh, green means outdoor sex, and black means you had sex, and if someone rips the bracelet off of you, that means that they did it with you, or that you got to do it with them. So and if I am like um, minimize this by making that comparison, forgive me, but is that what the jelly bracelets kind of serve now as far as a modern day hanky code?
So, so what's funny is, when I was in college, I actually wrote a paper about the whole jelly bracelet thing. And while the jelly bracelets were popular, it the whole kind of like PTA mom scandal worry of like, oh, the bracelets actually mean this, was basically just an urban legend. Um, but I
Oh,
feel like it definitely became something that like we would like joke about like as kids. But I think a lot of it was probably inspired by the hanky code, but I don't really know that many kids our age that were actually doing this stuff in exchange for bracelets. I mean, other than that one episode of Degrassi, but
Myth busted is what you're saying.
yeah. And I did a lot of research on it. I was like, oh, ah, fake.
That's
In other
funny.
words, parents will worry about everything.
Yes. Okay, so I feel like I got you off your path there. I apologize. Please continue.
No worries. I'm very neurosparkly, so I can go off tangents like all day.
So you left off on manners and learning manners, and the hanky code and the certain things you were looking for, and you mentioned the teddy bear and how that can kind of cross over with ABDL and blankets and stuff like that. Where do you go from there, as far as are there dynamics in leather? With manners and stuff like that. Obviously, you need to be a respectful person, but do the manners more rely in service and kink, or is it just in general a good person type manners?
Honestly, all of the above. Has at least has been my experience. Is um, when you think about the fact that like this was a culture that was created by a marginalized group. Being able to know that like oh our people, we're going to treat each other right and help each other out and live by a good sort of ethics, um, and treat each other well is kind of like important to everything. And um, there's a lot of dynamics and relationships within the leather culture, and whether it's a purely just a sir and boy relationship or a sir and girl or something like that, where um, there might be more rigid rules and protocol. A lot of time, a lot of my experiences, it really just becomes this large big extended family of like there's a daddy and boy, and I like to say that like I have a lot of leather uncles and aunties who look out for me, and a lot of siblings that we really inspire each other to help each other out, how to try to make the world better as best as we can by by helping each other, helping people um, that are also struggling. You find that like a lot of activism is very much a part of it, of trying to help a lot of our siblings that are struggling with during the days of the HIV epidemic and AIDS epidemic that rocked a lot of the community during the 80s. The we like to say that the lesbian community, our sisters, took care of a lot of people. There was a lot of knowledge, a lot of people, a lot of knowledge that was lost, and luckily, it helped people band together to be like, we're not going to disappear, and we're not going to like let any of our people suffer as much, help each other as much as we can. So there was a lot of activism involved there. And there's a wonderful library that was created by Vi Johnson and Jill Carter. Vi Johnson, who's a wonderful kind of leather grandma. They have a library, and the motto is "Never again fires, never again landfills," because they were tired of seeing their siblings and good friends, their families stuff, you know, thrown out, when their bio families would come, after they died and throw out all the stuff that was, meaningful to them. So, yeah, sorry, I realize I went into a whole other tangent there, but
You're
I guess
fine.
that's really what it comes down to me is it's like what brought me in was like how like oh sexy and like oh you know S&M and BDSM, all that stuff is leather and chains, that stuff is sexy, but what kept me here was the sense of community, that it's like we care for each other, we help each other out, and we inspire each other to be the best versions of ourselves that we can be.
So you tapped on the dynamics in leather. So and we may have already covered this when I asked you in the beginning, what is leather? So this is kind of a two-part question that may tap on your previous answer. But who exactly is leather for? And is leather typically sexual, or are there non-sexual parts of leather?
So I guess I'm going to go with the second part first, which is that while yes, there's a lot of it was created around sexuality, but it is not the a necessary part. I mean, I have a lot of, one of my leather uncles in my family. There are quite a number of people who are asexual, where sex is not necessarily the point for it. It's more about the service and and being there for each other. And um, while a lot of it, some people it's just about that camaraderie, that sense of that about the service, about the history, about activism, about kind of just being there for each other. And for some, it is very much about like the sex, the play, um, the roughness, the this or that. And for some, it's about protocol. It's about rules. Like a lot of the stuff. People had come from military background originally. Like after World War II, a lot of soldiers didn't want to go um, back to their homes to do the suburban white picket fence lifestyle, and created a lot of motorcycle clubs that became these original leather clubs. So they were attracted to a kind of like protocol and hierarchy and yes sir type of dynamic. And so it's I like to say, and granted I like to go with a very radical inclusion mindset, that it's like leather is whatever you need it to be for you. And so it's yeah, I guess it's a big word that everyone is going to have their own personal answer. To me, it is about being the best version of me I can be, and being there for my people.
That's a stellar answer. And I love the term you just used, radical inclusion. I really like that, and I feel like that's a term that Capcom has really embraced the last couple of years. Because not only are we seeing,
Yeah,
our fellow leather babies, we're also seeing baby furs, and we're seeing
absolutely.
a wide variety of different kinks and dynamics coming into Capcom that all kind of touch base and intersect with ABDL. Um, so
Absolutely. I'm about that cross pollination. Like it's it's when I first went to Capcom, it was so overwhelming, because I'd never seen so many other babies like me,
right.
and just get to be in a place where it was just like, oh no, this is who you are, and it's why it's such an important event for me. When I was running for my first title, Capcom like sent me like uh, some stuff to put in my auction basket, and I'll never forget that, because I feel like I found the confidence to run because of Capcom, and because I was like, you know what, I'm gonna let a lot of the other parts of the leather world know that we're the baby of the family, but we're still a part of the family. And so being able to be sort of the leather ambassador for Capcom, and sort of like see so much acceptance, like more like if Capcom keep growing and growing, and finding more space to help everyone feel included, and also see in the leather world, um, littles and age players and ABDLs be included as well. That I was recently at an event called South Plains Leatherfest, and Mama Vi read a story to all these littles that were in the library, and it was like, there's so many of us here. And knowing like the first time I went to a large leather event, I was the only diaper boy there, and would get a bunch of side eye. But now, um, and I don't put all the credit on myself. Like, yes, I've done a lot of work going to different events and presenting classes and talking to people, but it's not just me. There's many. There's a lot of wonderful people around, and I love just seeing the more acceptance happen. And yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to
No,
interrupt you
no,
with
you're
another,
fine. You're fine.
but
So I want to touch on your title here in a minute, but when you first went to your first leather event and you were wearing poofs, visibly, I would imagine. How
and
did
a
that?
pacifier in my mouth.
Yes, and a pacifier in your mouth. Like, how did that make you feel when you walked in there and you were getting the side eye from people? Did you feel unwelcomed? Did you feel like maybe this isn't a good idea? But obviously you persevered and stuck through it. And like you said, the little inclusion's grown quite a bit. But back then, tell me like what your thoughts were. Did you get anyone say anything to
Oh
you
yeah,
for wearing a diaper? Um,
there was definitely a lot. At least when I first started going out, a lot of side eye, a lot of comments. I'm lucky that I had really wonderful people around me, there to protect me and stuff. And, I was with a sir who was like, no, you're, right now, you're my boy in service to me. You're going out. If anyone, has an issue, they can come to me about it. He's like, I'll tell him that you know, the pacifier's there for humiliation or, just when I want to quiet you. And I was like, that's fair. but it was, but it was also he was like, this is how you do leather. You've got, because I'm like, yeah, leather and baby powder are two great smells that smell great together. Yeah. But it's like for you, it's a vest and with a pacifier attached. Like that's no different than, this one with a pup hood or this one, with a flogger on their hip. It's how leather is whatever you make it. And the thing is that like the whole scene started about rebellion. So like it's not one of those things of like you can't be a conformist unless you conform. Like no, you've got to make it your own. Leather fits to the wearer. And I'm so thankful I had good people who encouraged me and were like, nope, you just be a good boy and do what do what we told you to do. And I did. So I was just did my best to be a good boy, be of service. I did. When you're like the boy in the group, you do a lot of like fetching drinks. For for your people. But like that's what I loved doing, to be able to be a good little helper. And hey, like let's help load in the bootblack stand from the truck into the bar. So that our bootblacks can do what they do. And it's just nice to be able to be a part of the family. There is one instance that I know that for a lot of like Leathermen, because a lot of them come from a gay uh, um, um, being gay men. Someone told me the reason that they're oftentimes very reticent towards the age play ABDL community is because there's so much negative stigma that has been around for decades. Like back in the 50s, there was this horrible short called Boys Beware that, queer people, but especially gay men, are often cited to like, oh, they're all pedophiles, they're all groomers, this or that. So that's why for a lot of gay men, it was very like, I'm not sure how I feel about being with someone, around someone who like their part of their identity is being a quote unquote sexy baby, So I think for a lot of people, like it caused a lot of fear there. But, what I've loved that I've been able to do is talking with a lot of people from the quote unquote old guard, a lot of people, and they've seen me. Honestly, when I ran for international, the biggest win I got wasn't even the sash. It was that I had an older Leatherman who I had a lot of respect for come and tell me like, you changed my mind about littles. You've shown me that like, no, you do belong. You're not all brats. No shade to brats, of course, but he was like, you're still a really good leather boy, even as a baby boy. And I was like, that was what I was here to do. That's what I was here to show. Um, so I'm glad that a lot of more people have become accepting. But there is one instance that was really an interesting thing that happened. I was at a gear night, which was at a bar. I was coming with some people. We'd had dinner, and a gear night is usually a time where a bar or somewhere like that has a like wear whatever feels sexy to you. So you've got guys in like the full a full Tom of Finland leather outfits, or you've got people in like football pads or like sportswear, or dressed like lumberjacks or wrestling, whatever, like, quote unquote gear is that makes you feel like, hot and sexy or whatever. And me, I was just like, I was wearing, the what makes me feel good, which is I was wearing Winnie the Pooh overalls, a Cookie Monster T-shirt, and I had my pacifier, and I was padded, I was just being the cute little boy that I am. And this one gentleman, and I'm going to use the term gentleman very loosely.
Very loosely. Ooh, spicy.
Well, he comes up to me and he's telling me that like you don't need to be here. It's your outfit, everything about you, like the vibe that you put out, it makes a lot of people uncomfortable. It's like it's taboo. It's way too close. It's too much of an edge for people because of what it represents. And he's like, it's just not cool for you to be here. And it was funny because, like, at first I thought he was upset because I was mixing IPs, with like Winnie the Pooh and Cookie Monster, two different shows.
Such a
oh
sin.
no,
For shame on you.
for shame.
One likes
But
cookies,
like,
one likes honey. Come on, man.
you can't. Can you put those together? I feel like you should.
I
Yes.
feel like it's a
Um,
challenge now. Someone in the comments tell us, what do you get when you put cookies and honey together? Does it taste good, or is it just two textures that just do not belong?
get at it in the comments.
Yes.
But
So,
what was interesting about it is that this guy, like, after he walked away, I'm like, you're like. I mean, you're dressed like a cop. Aren't you going to make some people uncomfortable? Like, come on.
like, normally with most clubs, they're like, if you're police or fire, we don't particularly want you here because the association with law and law enforcement. Um, you know, I can definitely understand that uncomfortability.
Yeah, but it was, I don't know, it was an interesting experience that luckily, like, I don't see that as often nowadays. And and I'm glad, like, I'm glad that there's a lot more people that are happy to be able to feel free enough to be themselves. Like, whether that's like, mixing leather and diapers, whether that's mixing diapers and furry, whether that's leather and drag, whether that, whatever, all of, a big drag pony furry diaper leather creature that's like, all the things. Why not? We only have this one life to live, so like, why not embrace the stuff that makes you happy? And so I'm yes, there were a lot of instances of people who didn't take me seriously as a little, like, because they were like, well, he's just a little. It's not like he can be, responsible enough to do this or that, or be a presenter, or be a judge, and I'm like, in my real, my day-to-day life, I've like had been on committees with the mayor of the city. Like, I'm capable of being doing things,
Very
but
responsible little boy.
I try.
You should see.
Except remembering to eat, but
You should probably eat dinner soon if you haven't already. Wrapping up, let's talk about your title real quick. How did you win your title? And then to wrap things up nicely in a nice little leather bow, how common is leather in kink?
um so I'll try to do the second one first again, because I feel like leather is quite common in kink, enough to where it's like, I feel like at one point leather was more of an umbrella term, but kink has kind of switched and become the larger umbrella term, and leather is a large circle with underneath umbrella underneath that umbrella. And because BDSM and kinks and fetishes and stuff has been around since the caveman days. So it's, there's new ways to play, but nothing is necessarily new. Um, and I think that leather, I used to kind of have the there used to be a motto someone said of like, BDSM is something you do, leather is something you are. and I that's I guess still something that I kind of feel myself. So I'd say it's a larger aspect of the kinky verse um, than we think. But I think that we're also seeing that like there's many different avenues. It's a huge neighborhood with many houses in it, and leather is one of the is a big house at the end of the cul-de-sac.
Okay. So,
I use a lot of metaphors.
so your title. How did you
Yeah.
win your first title?
So for years, I always said I would never run for a title. Like I made a lot of jokes about it because I'd been a judge's boy and helped out with contests, and I'd even been a judge before. But I always said I would never run for a title because boys like me don't win. And someone said, "Oh, that's because you've never run." And I was like, "How dare you come at me with logic? That's not fair." And so I eventually kind of got of the confidence of like, you know what, I need to the goal is to get on stage and show that there are leather boys like me out there. Anyways, like there's leather girls, there's leather people that are regardless of gender. Of course, I don't feel like you can be a leather boy regardless of your gender identity, but that's a whole other conversation. But I was like, you know what? I am a part of this family, and I have been for a while. And me being, having a pacifier in my mouth or a diaper doesn't make me any less of being a good boy. In fact, anything, I feel like it makes me better because I don't have to go to the bathroom because I already wearing it. But I was like, cool, I'm gonna do this and put together my action basket and my outfit. And they wanted me. One of the categories was you have to have a leather formal outfit, and I was like, I I don't want to do the full like uniform look of like the uniform shirt and the pants and this the standard look because that's not me. So I had someone make me a little sailor boy outfit out of leather. So it's like a leather sailor suit, um, and I looked adorable in it. I'm just gonna. But I ran for South Central Leather Boy in Dallas in 2019, which it's a regional title, so it's a few states that included Oklahoma. And I was like, my goal is just to get on stage, and people did not expect me to win against the other boy, who was a lot more traditional, seen and not heard type. But I apparently surprised everyone because they loved my speech, they loved the fantasy, they loved everything I did because I was just being my authentic self, and I won South Central, and later that year went for international leather boy. And there were like a few other boys, and I was very much the dark horse. Like my friends like to say, I was the Jinx Monsoon that year. Like I was very much the underdog that people didn't expect to win, but wanted to win because I was just giving me. And even though there were boys who were more traditional, more like the more stereotypical look or this or that, they loved what I had to say, loved my meanness, and my motto, which is what I tell everyone. It's even on my pin. If you've anyone who's gotten one of my title pins at Capcom or different places knows, it's you belong and you are enough. And that's my message that I try to send to everyone: is that you belong and you are enough. And it's just important for me to let everyone know that because the world is a better place with you in it, and and especially to those of us on the ABL spectrum, we are beautiful and cute, and people love us. And now we finally convinced the rest of the kinky verse that yes, you do in fact love us because we're adorable. And if you ever see me, ask me for one of my pins. It's a pacifier with a leather boy pride flag, and I'm just it was vindicating. Vindicating is a weird word to use, but it was wonderful to get to see because I never thought that I would be able to. And even though the night I won, there were a few people that were upset and left. Like there was one person who was overheard saying, "I can't believe they gave the sash to that faggot in a diaper." And I like to joke, I should have made that my T-shirt. Like, but yeah, I'm like, you know what? Those, there are always going to be people who don't get you, but
Yeah. That is shameful,
It's
but I'm really happy that you won. You deserve that
Thank you.
100%.
I'm just still trying to do my best to help my community, and my community is both the leather world and the ABDL world, and I just do my best to be the best little helper, the best little boy I can be.
Will you succeed? Okay, we have dived in a huge amount into leather, and I feel like there is a ton more to cover. Maybe potentially in another episode if you would be down the clown for coming back on to discuss leather some more and
Abs-
ABDL some more.
Absolutely, I would love to. There's so much to say, and I'd love to. Yeah, Zaki Ryu, you've been such an inspiration to so many people for years. So, getting to do something with you feels like a wonderful sort of crossover event. Like I just feel honored to get to be on your podcast. So,
Stop it!
absolutely.
I am nobody. Just stop it. Just stop while you're ahead. You're making my cheeks red. And, ugh, terrible. Okay. Alrighty, Boons. Well, thank you so much for tuning in and watching this episode of the Stay True and Stay You podcast. If you haven't already, be sure and comment, like, and subscribe. Be sure and check out JBaby social media, which you can find linked in the description box below. And of course, be sure and check out booncrewshop.com, where you can snag all kinds of cool t-shirts with cool community designs on them. And if you want to support the Stay True and Stay You podcast, be sure and check out my Subscribe Star, link for which in the comment section below. JBaby, thank you again for coming on, and I look forward to seeing you in another episode of the Stay True and Stay You podcast.
Awesome sauce. Good day, Boons.
Yeah, good night, Boons.